Hello, everyone. Good day. This is Miss Merle once again. So, we will be talking about the antiglobulin test or Coombs test. And this is a vital blood test used to detect antibodies, specifically IgG or complement proteins or components attached to RBCs or red blood cells. And it aids in diagnosing immune mediated hemolytic anemias, hemolytic disease of the fetus and newborn, and transfusion reactions by identifying these immune components on RBCs. And then the direct antiglobulin test, or DAT or DAT, directly examines a patient's RBCs for pre-existing antibodies or antibody or complement binding, crucial for investigating AIHA or transfusion reactions. And in contrast, the indirect antiglobulin test screens a patient's serum for free antibodies capable of binding to RBCs. So the IAT is essential for antibody screening in blood banking, prenatal testing for maternal antibodies, and ensuring blood compatibility before transfusion. So both DAT and IAT are critical tools for understanding and managing immune-related red blood cell destruction. So for the topic outline, we will touch the history of antiglobulin tests, anti-human globulin reagents, known as the polyspecific and monospecific, how AHG is prepared, and the antibodies required in AHG, the anti-IgG and anti-complement components, the use of polyspecific versus monospecific AHG in the IAT, the principles of antiglobulin testing, the direct antiglobulin test, the DAT panel, the evaluation of a positive DAT, indirect antiglobulin test, the factors affecting the antiglobulin test, the ratio of serums to cells, reaction medium, temperature, incubation time, RBC washing, and using saline for washing, addition of AHG, centrifugation for reading, and the most common sources of error, modified and automated antiglobulin testing test techniques. We have the LIS, the low ionic polybrine technique, enzyme link antiglobulin test, solid phase technology, gel test, and the comparison of HG methodologies for that methods and AAT. So for the objectives, students should know how to state the principle of the antiglobulin test, differentiate between monoclonal from polyclonal and monospecific from polyspecific HG reagents, describe the preparation of monoclonal and polyclonal HG reagents, list the antibody requirements for HG reagents, explain the use of polyspecific versus monospecific AHG in the indirect antiglobulin test, list the advantages and disadvantages of anti-complement activity in polyspecific AHG, compare and contrast the IAT and the direct antiglobulin test, explain the principal applications of RBC sensitization, explain the reasons for the procedural steps in DAT and IAT, interpret the results of a DAT and IAT panel, identify the factors that affect the antiglobulin test. 12th is formulate the steps necessary to resolve errors associated with the performance of the antiglobulin test. Describe the multiple methodologies utilized in AHG testing. And 14, state the advantages and disadvantages of the various methodologies utilized for DAT and IAT testing based on the needs of the transfusion service department. So, for the introduction, the anti-human globulin test, it's also called as the Coombs test. This one relies on anti-human globulins from immunized animals binding to human globulins like IgG or complement. And this test can identify globulins that are either circulating freely in the blood serum or attached to the surface of red blood cell antigens or no, yeah, I mean attach the surfaces of red blood cells. And then the AGT is a crucial tool in transfusion medicine because plays a key role in ensuring the safety of blood transfusions for patients. And then the types of blood group antibodies are commonly involved in anti-human globulin testing, we have IgM antibodies and IgG antibodies. And then we should remember is that since IgM antibodies can directly agglutinate RBCs in saline because of its large pentameric structure, so I bet there's no need for us to use this anti-human globulin for IG to detect the presence of IgM antibodies. But for the IgG antibodies, they're quite small, monomeric in structure, and too small to directly agglutinate RBCs. Hence, they're also termed or called as non-agglutinating or incomplete antibodies. So, for the mechanism of the AGT or an anti-human globulin test, so when the red cells are coated with IgG antibodies, adding anti-human globulin that targets IgG will cause the red cells to clump together, and this is known as heme agglutination. So, the AHG reagent essentially acts as an antibody against other antibodies, making antigen antibody interactions visible that would otherwise be too small to see or to be seen. And then certain blood group proteins, oh no, certain blood group antibodies can also trigger the binding of complement proteins to red blood cells. And if complement activation is suspected, the AHG reagent can be modified to include components that detect complement proteins, creating a polyspecific AHG. So, what's the purpose of antiglobulin tests? So, it's mainly to detect the presence of IgG or complement synthesized RBCs, the presence of IgGs or complement components coating or sensitizing RBCs. So, with the history of the antiglobulin test pre-AGT era, so before the antiglobulin test, before the AGT existed, only IgM antibodies, which should directly cause red blood cells to clump, could be detected. So, the development of AGT made it possible to identify IgG antibodies that don't directly agglutinate red blood cells. So, this breakthrough allowed for the discovery of previously unknown blood group systems. So, the development and key discoveries. So, let's start with in 1945, Kunz and his team introduced the AGT test or antiglobulin test to detect weak and non-agglutinating Rh antibodies. And the following year, in 1946, Coombs and colleagues detailed the use of ASG to identify red cells that had been synthesized with antibodies in newborns and hemolytic disease, which became known as the direct antiglobulin test or DATS. And by 1947, Coombs and Morant pinpointed the anti-gamma globulin portion of the AG reagent as the component responsible for detecting Rh antibodies. And later in 1951, Daisy proposed that another antibody activity was involved in the AGT reaction. And finally, in 1957, Daisy and his co-workers established that warm reacting antibodies are detected due to anti-gamma globulin activity, while cold reacting antibodies are detected due to activity against non-gamma globulins, specifically beta globulins and complement components like C3 and C4. So in 1908, Moriski initially described the principle behind AGT by using rabbit antibodies against goat serum to clump rabbit red blood cells that have been coated with goat antibodies against rabbit red blood cells. So Coombs' method involved injecting human serum into rabbits to generate an anti-human serum containing antibodies against human globulins, and this anti-human globulin serum then caused red cells that were synthesized with IgG antibodies to link together and form visible clumps known as heme agglutination. So, antiglobulin test application. So, it detects RBC synthesized with IgG alloantibodies, and these are developed from transfusions or pregnancies. And IgG autoantibodies, common in autoimmune hemolytic anemia, and complement components. Test types include we have IAT and DAT. So, if we're talking about in vitro sensitization, so it's more on antibody screening and cross-matching, then we can use IAT. And then for the direct antiglobulin test, which involves the detection of in vivo sensitization of red cells. So we have HDN and autoimmune hemolytic anemias. So types of antiglobulin test, we have IAT and DAT again. So if we're talking about in vitro sensitization, so that's IAT, and if it's in vivo sensitization or coating of red blood cells, then that's your direct anti-human globulin testing. So this is a good diagram to start with. So the diagram illustrates the principles of direct antiglobulin test and indirect antiglobulin test. So both variations of the Coombs test, both are varied. So the top panel, so for the DAT, so in vivo antibody coating. So this shows red blood cells or erythrocytes have been already they are coated with antibodies represented by the Y shapes or the antibodies while still in the patient's body, so meaning in vivo. And then these antibodies are directed against antigens on the surface of the red blood cells. And washing. So the next step depicts the washing of these red blood cells to remove any unbound or free antibodies present in the serum. So this ensures that only antibodies attached to the red blood cells are detected. So adding the anti-human globulin reagent will after washing the HG is added. So what happens? The HG reagent that specifically targets human IgG antibodies, so represented by the starburst shape with Y arms. So this one is added to the washed red blood cells. So next will be there is agglutination. So if IgG antibodies were indeed coating the red cells, so what happens, guys? The HG reagent will bind to these antibodies on multiple red blood cells, causing them to cross-link and clump together. So this visible clumping is called agglutination and is an indication that a positive dot is happening. So we have the bottom panel. So indirect antiglobulin test. So here, antibodies present in serum and reagent erythrocytes or the reagent RBCs. The RBCs here are reagents. So the sample coming from the patient is the serum. So again, this section starts with the sample with the patient's serum containing free antibodies, so the Y shapes, and then the reagent red blood cells with known antigens on their surface, and followed by the incubation. So the patient's serum and the reagent red blood cells are incubated together. So if the patient's serum contains antibodies that are specific to the antigens on the reagent red blood cells, then these antibodies will bind to the red blood cells, and then washing. So similar to DAT, the red blood cells are then washed to remove any unbound antibodies from the serum, and then the addition of the anti-IgG reagent follows, wherein it is added to the washed reagent red blood cells. And then next will be we can expect agglutination. If the patient's serum contained IgG antibodies that bound to the reagent red blood cells during incubation, so the added ASG reagent will now bind to these attached IgG antibodies on multiple red blood cells, so causing them to agglutinate. So this clumping indicates a positive IAT result, meaning the patient has antibodies in their serum that can react with the antigens on the reagent red blood cells. So a closer look to the DAT. So the diagram illustrates the direct Coombs test or direct antiglobulin test or anti-human globulin test. So it shows a blood sample taken from a patient whose RBCs are already coated with antibodies due to an immune reaction. So these RBCs are washed, and then after washing, and then the anti-human antibodies or the Coombs reagent is added. So if the patient RBCs were indeed coated with human antibodies, the added anti-human antibodies will bind them, causing the RBCs to clump together or to agglutinate. And this agglutination is a positive test result, indicating that antibodies were present in the patient's red blood cells in vivo, so DAT in vivo. And then indirect Coombs test. So this diagram illustrates the indirect Coombs test, and it starts with or it begins with the recipient serum, which may contain antibodies. So donor red blood cells are added to this serum, then allowing this will allow any recipient antibodies that target donor antigens to bind to the donor cells, forming an antibody antigen complex. And then after washing, the AHG reagent is added. And if the recipient's antibodies did bind to the donor red blood cells, the anti-human antibodies will then link these cells together, causing agglutination, which is indicative of a positive test result. So this means that the recipient has antibodies capable of reacting with the donor red blood cells. So here, the types of anti-human or AHG reagents, we have first the polyspecific AHG. So it contains antibodies against human IgG and C3d complement components and may also include antibodies to C3b, C4b, and anti-C4d. So this reagent helps red blood cells synthesize with IgG, C3d, or both to agglutinate. And then while commercial versions typically don't strongly react with IgA and IgM heavy chains, they might contain antibodies to kappa and lambda light chains, potentially leading to reactions with IgA or IgM molecules. Then we have the monospecific AHG contains only one antibody specificity. It's either anti-IgG only or your antibody to specific complement components like only anti-C3b or anti-C3d. And we have common licensed monospecific AHG reagents in the form of anti-IgG and anti-C3b, C3d. And anti-IgG reagent or agent. So an anti-IgG reagent specifically targets the FC part of the, where's the FC? The FC part, this one, the tail, the FC part of the IgG antibody and does not react with complement proteins. However, if it's not explicitly labeled as gamma heavy chain, specific, then it might also react with IgM, IgA, and all IgG types because it could contain antibodies that could recognize the common light chains found in all these immunoglobulins. And we have the anti-complement reagents or components. So these reagents, specific for complement components, contain antibodies against we have against C3b and C3d, but does not react with human immunoglobulins. And then monospecific anti-complement sorry, reagents often consist of a mixture of monoclonal antibodies targeting both C3b and C3d, hence anti-C3b and anti-C3d. So this table 5.1 anti-human globulin reagents outlines different types of anti-human globulin reagents used in blood testing. So the polyspecific AHG contains antibodies against both IgG and C3d and sometimes other immune components, while the monospecific anti-IgG AHG specifically targets IgG antibodies but lacks anti-complement activity. Anti-complement AHG, this one, contains antibodies solely directed against specific complement components like C3d, C3b, C4b, and C4d without reacting to immunoglobulins. And these reagents can be produced using rabbit polyclonal or murine monoclonal antibody technologies or a combination of both. So remember the leporine for rabbit and the murine for the mice or mouse. And then the preparation of anti-human globulin. So the classic method of HG production. So HG reagents are made by injecting human serum or purified globulins into animals like rabbits. And we have sheep and goats. And this triggers the animal's immune system to produce antibodies against these proteins such as anti-IgG when human IgG is injected, or anti-complement antibodies against human complement components. So the resulting serum is polyclonal, meaning it contains a variety of antibodies produced by different immune cells. So this one, the conventional method of polyclonal anti-human globulin production. So this diagram illustrates the conventional method for our polyclonal anti-human globulin production. So rabbits are injected with either we have the complement components or the IgG, and then this um upon injection, and this stimulates the rabbits to produce polyclonal antibodies. So the antibodies are then collected from multiple rabbits and purified, and then the antibodies produced against complement are labeled monospecific polyclonal anti-C3b or D, and the antibodies produced against IgG are labeled monospecific uh, polyclonal anti-IgG. And then finally, these two monospecific polyclonal antibody preparations are blended together to create THG polyspecific polyclonal blend, which contains antibodies against both complement and IgG. So the polyclonal versus monoclonal IgG production. So polyclonal antibodies. These antibodies are capable of recognizing multiple epitopes on an antigen, and they give high avidity that may have variability in its potency or in their potency, while monoclonal antibodies produced or generated by hybridoma technology, they are derived from a single plasma cell clone, and they can only recognize or target only one epitope, ensuring high specificity and consistency. So for the polyclonal age reproduction, we have the common production animals. Mostly rabbits are utilized, but if we wanted a large scale production of these antibodies, we can have the sheep or the goats. And then for the polyclonal age reproduction, so modern production steps involves first purifying human IgG and complement C3 antigens from pooled blood samples, and then separate groups of rabbits are then immunized with either the IgG antigen or the C3 antigen. So the resulting anti-IgG and anti-complement antibodies from multiple rabbits are collected and mixed to ensure a broad range of reactivity. So any unwanted how can I say it? Any unwanted antibodies that could react with ABO red blood cells are removed through absorption. And finally, the total antibody concentration and the reagent's effectiveness, of course, are also tested. So for the QC and potency testing, uh, it uh, it involves block titration to find the best antibody concentration, preventing false negative results due to excess antibody. Anti-C3 reagents are tested using red blood cells coated with C3b and C3d to really ensure they can detect clinically important C3d on red blood cells while limiting false positives. And then polyclonal reagents can have inconsistent levels of anti-C3b and anti-C3d. So a variability that monoclonal antibodies can help avoid. So with the monoclonal age reproduction, so the monoclonal antibody technique pioneered by Kohler and Milstein, this is a common method for creating HG reagents that have a high concentration of antibodies and are very specific for IgG and C3 fragments. So, for the immunization of laboratory animals, the production process of our monoclonal ASG. So, to produce monoclonal antibodies, mice are injected with the purified human immunoglobulins, IgG or complement, and then the antibody producing spleen cells from these mice are fused with the cancerous myeloma cell. And then this fusion creates hybridoma cells that can continuously produce specific antibodies. So for the screening and selection of hybridomas, so hybridoma cells are tested to find those that are specifically produce antibodies against IgG or complement fragments, and only the best ones are chosen. So these selected cells are then grown in the lab or in mice to produce large amounts of monoclonal antibodies, and finally these antibodies are purified, made into HG reagents, and prepared for sale or commercial use. So this one, the hybridoma technology for the monoclonal anti-human globulin production. So this diagram depicts the process of how monoclonal antibodies are generated, how monoclonal antibody reagents are created. So it shows two parallel pathways, one for creating antibodies against complement components, and the other one for creating antibodies against IgG. So here's a step-by-step breakdown. So immunization. So on the left, a mouse is injected with purified human complement antigens, and on the right, a separate mouse is injected with purified human IgG antigen. So this step uh, stimulates the immune systems of the mice to produce antibodies specific to the injected antigens, and then followed by antibody producing cell collection. So after sufficient time for an immune response, so the antibody producing lymphocytes, specifically the B cells, are collected from the spleens. So from the spleens of, how to say that? Mhm. So they are collected from the spleens of both immunized mice. So fusion with myeloma cells ensues. So the spleen cells are fused with the myeloma cells. So what are these myeloma cells? These myeloma cells are cancerous plasma cells that can divide indefinitely. So this fusion process creates hybridoma cells. So the key advantage of hybridomas is that they inherit the antibody producing ability of the spleen cells plus the immortality of the myeloma cells. And next is the selection and cloning. So this step is it's not the selection and cloning is not explicitly shown in detail, but is implied by the clones grown in tissue culture. This one. So the hybridoma cells are screened to identify those that produce the desired antibodies, either anti-complement or anti-IgG. So these selected hybridoma cells are then cloned, and then meaning individual cells are isolated and allowed to multiply, creating populations of identical cells all producing the same specific antibody. So the next is the monoclonal antibody production. So the cloned hybridoma cells are grown in tissue culture, and these cultures yield large quantities of monoclonal antibodies. So on the left, hybridomas, guys, derived from the mouse immunized with complement produced monoclonal anti-C3bDG and then antibodies, so indicating specificity for different fragments of complement. While on the right, so hybridomas derived from the mouse immunized with IgG produce monoclonal anti-IgG antibodies. So the last one is the, sorry guys, the last one is the AHG polyspecific monoclonal blend. And finally, the purified monoclonal anti-C3bDG antibodies and the monoclonal anti-IgG antibodies are blended together. See this one? So this creates the HG polyspecific monoclonal blend. And then, which is an HG reagent that specifically contains, meaning it has monoclonal antibodies against both complement components, C3bD and G, potentially G, and also that of IgG. So here we have the advantages and disadvantages of the monoclonal ASG. So let's start with the good things. So advantages, it produces highly specific and pure ASG reagents, unlimited supply of antibodies with consistent specificity. We have, there's no need for the absorption steps to remove unwanted antibodies because it's monospecific, and then lower risk of false positive results due to heterospecific antibodies. Well, but this one, of course, it's monoclonal, so it can recognize only a single epitope and an antigen. And for IgG detection, multiple monoclonal antibodies may be needed or may need to be blended to ensure detection of all IgG subclasses. And remember, we have one, one, two, three, and four IgG subclasses. So here, guys, so polyspecific monoclonal HG. So some companies like Immucor, they create HG reagents entirely using monoclonal antibodies. An example of such a blend includes the monoclonal anti-IgG that targets specific parts of the IgG1, IgG2, and IgG3, along with monoclonal anti-C3b and anti-C3d to detect red blood cells coated with complement. And importantly, this monoclonal anti-IgG does not react with IgG4, but well, since IgG4 is not considered clinically significant, so there's no need for it to be detected. And we have the monospecific ASG. So this one contains only one antibody specificity and can be produced using mono, poly, or blended formulations. So examples are we have the monospecific anti-IgG, which will target only IgG, and the monospecific anti-C3b or C3d that will target only the complement components or these complement proteins. And then preparation of the AG, final preparation and FDA approval. So before being sold, AG reagents undergo strict quality control and FDA review. So these reagents contain buffers, stabilizers, and bacteriostatic reagents to maintain their stability. And then they're also typically dyed green. So using a mix of patent blue and tartrazine for easy identification in the laboratories. Visual cue. So here, guys, we have the monospecific AG is it's designed to detect only one specific antibody, of course, monospecific, or it can detect only a complement component. And unlike polyspecific AG, which contains both anti-IgG and anti-complement antibodies. So monospecific anti-IgG detects only IgG-coated RBCs. So it can only detect these IgGs which are coating the red cells and can be mono, poly, or blended in formulation. While the monospecific anti-C3b, C3d detects complement-coated RBCs and essential for cases where antibodies fix complement but do not directly agglutinate red blood cells. So anti-IgG. So antibody required in AHG reagents or antibodies required. We have anti-IgG. So AHG reagents are crucial for detecting IgG antibodies that don't directly clone red blood cells. Always remember that. And most clinically important red blood cell antibodies are of the IgG1 and IgG subtypes. So again, the most clinically important RBC antibodies are of the IgG1 and IgG3 subtypes. IgM antibodies are rarely the primary target in HG testing because they typically cause direct clumping and activate complement, which can be detected by the anti-complement part of the HG. While not essential, HG must also contain activity against IgA or IgA, and then the presence of anti-light chain activity allows it to detect all classes of immunoglobulins. So here, guys, anti-complement, anti-C3b, anti-C3d. So when some antibodies react with antigens on RBCs, they can trigger the binding of complement proteins to the RBC membrane. So these bound complement components can be detected using the anti-complement activity present in HG reagents. So examples of antibodies that frequently bind complement include the KID blood group systems, anti-JKA, anti-JKB, and the anti-Lutheran, anti-LUB. Variable binding with the this is Duffy, so anti-FYA, anti-K for what's K, guys, Cal, and then anti-S for the MNS, and anti-S na with a small one, and then rarely binds complement anti-D, E, and C for the RH. So complement degradation and detection. So this is very important, guys. So when the complement system is activated, the proteins C3 and C4 are broken down into smaller fragments. So specifically C3b and C4b attach themselves to the surfaces of red blood cells, while C3a and C4a they remain or they stay in the liquid part of the blood in the plasma. And eventually, the C3b and C4b fragments on the red blood cells further degrade into C3d and C4dd, sorry, which remain permanently attached to the red blood cell membrane. Hence, anti-C3d is essential in detecting complement-coated RBC, especially in warm and cold autoimmune hemolytic anemias. Hence, the ISBT and ICSH joint working party support the inclusion of anti-C3d in HG reagents due to its clinical relevance. So here, guys, monospecific HG and indirect in IAT. So we have the polyspecific versus monospecific. So polyspecific HG can identify both IgG antibodies and complement components C3b, C3d attached to red blood cells. In contrast, Monospecific anti-IgG specifically detects only IgG antibodies on RBCs, which are the main focus in testing before blood transfusion. So there is an ongoing discussion about whether to routinely use monospecific anti-IgG or polyspecific AHG for antibody screening and pre-transfusion compatibility testing. So certainly, clinically important red blood cell antibodies can only be detected using the anti-complement part of the polyspecific HG. And a study analyzing nearly 40,000, no, that's is 39, so nearly 40,000 blood group samples found five was JK, that anti-KID, anti-JKA antibodies that were only identified with polyspecific HG, and some anti-GKA, anti-FYA antibodies were found with both polyspecific HG and monospecific anti-AG using this, but not with albumin. So let's go directly to the point. So false positive reactions were more common with polyspecific HG, and this is commonly due to complement binding. And then false positive reactions with polyspecific AG. Does it happen? Yes. So unwanted positive reactions can happen due to clinically insignificant cold reacting IgM antibodies, specifically anti-I, anti-H, and anti-PI, and anti-M. So if a weakly positive AG reaction occurs, pre-warming the sample can eliminate about 60% of the false positive reactions. It's very simple. Just do pre-warming of the sample. So the principles of the antiglobulin test. So this test operates based on two fundamental principles. So the presence of globulins and complement components on red blood cells and the animal's immune response triggered by injected human globulins, leading to the production of ASG. So serological tests utilize a range of ASG reagents that can react with different human globulins, including anti-IgG antibodies, antibodies against C3D component of the human complement, and polyspecific reagents that contain antibodies against both IgG and C3D. So what's the principle and application? So let's start with the purpose of DAT. So it detects in vivo sensitization of RBCs with IgG or complement components. So this is the last slide for the first phase or first part. So clinical conditions associated with positive DAT. We have HDN, hemolytic disease of the newborn, hemolytic transfusion reactions, HTRs, and we also have the autoimmune drug-induced hemolytic anemias. So please wait for part 2. Thank you.